Nationalism. Nationalism is a political ideology that emphasizes the interests and culture of one nation or ethnic group over others. It seeks to promote a sense of identity and unity among people who share a common language, history, or cultural background, often gearing toward strengthening sovereignty and achieving greater self-governance. Nationalists believe that their nation's needs should be a priority in political decisions and that their government should act primarily in the interest of the national community. This ideology can manifest in various forms, from civic nationalism, which focuses on the shared values and civic engagement within a state, to ethnic nationalism, which bases national identity on ethnic or racial similarities. While nationalism can help foster a sense of pride and collective responsibility, it can also lead to exclusionary policies and conflicts when the emphasis on national purity overshadows inclusive democratic principles. In its more aggressive forms, nationalism can lead to xenophobia or conflicts with neighboring countries over territorial disputes. However, in its moderate forms, it can also contribute to political cohesion and social stability by fostering a shared sense of purpose and destiny among citizens. Nationalism plays a crucial role in how people perceive their place in the world and often influences foreign policy and domestic agendas in significant ways. Feminism. Feminism is a socio-political movement and ideology that champions women's rights on the ground of equality of the sexes. Feminists advocate for equal opportunities for women and men in education, employment, and governance. They strive to dismantle the historical and structural inequalities that have traditionally placed women at a disadvantage in various spheres of life. Feminism encompasses a range of perspectives, from advocating for legal reforms to challenging societal norms and behaviors that perpetuate gender discrimination. The movement addresses issues such as gender-based violence, reproductive rights, and the gender pay gap. Feminists argue that these problems are rooted in patriarchal systems that value male dominance and control, which manifest in both public institutions and private relationships. By promoting gender equality, feminism not only seeks to improve the lives of women, but also challenges the harmful stereotypes and practices that limit both women and men. Over the decades, feminism has evolved through several waves, each with different focuses, ranging from legal equality and voting rights to broader social inequalities and cultural biases. Modern feminism is often intersectional, considering how gender intersects with other identity factors like race, class, and sexuality, which influence one's experience of discrimination and privilege. It aims not only to elevate women, but to transform the societal structures that enforce gender roles, advocating for a more inclusive and equitable world.
Click subscribe to this channel to get more topics you love.
Populism. Populism is a political approach that strives to appeal to ordinary people who feel that their concerns are disregarded by established elite groups. Populists position themselves as the voice of the common person and often frame politics as a battle between the pure people and the corrupt elite. This ideology can manifest on both the right and left of the political spectrum, adapting its message to the specific cultural and economic contexts of a society. Right-wing populists typically focus on nationalism and restrictive immigration policies, while left-wing populists often prioritize social justice and economic redistribution. Despite these differences, populists generally advocate for policies that they claim directly reflect the will of the people, sometimes bypassing traditional democratic institutions and norms which they argue are controlled by elites. Critics of populism argue that it oversimplifies complex political issues, often resorting to scapegoating and creating divisions within society. However, supporters believe that populism reinvigorates democracy by engaging disenfranchised segments of the population and addressing neglected issues. The rise of populism in various global contexts reflects broader dissatisfaction with conventional politics and the perceived inability of current political systems to address economic inequality, cultural changes, and feelings of disenfranchisement. Progressivism. Progressivism is a political philosophy that advocates for social reform and progressive changes aimed at improving society. Progressives believe that governments should take active roles in addressing inequalities and injustices to ensure that everyone has fair access to opportunities and resources. This ideology is driven by a belief in continual improvement of society through innovation, education, and reform, often focusing on issues like social justice, environmental sustainability, and economic equality. Progressives push for policies that expand civil rights, protect the environment, improve education, and ensure health care for all. They typically support a more interventionist government that not only regulates the economy to prevent abuses of power by large corporations, but also provides social services to reduce poverty and enhance the quality of life for all citizens. Progressivism is rooted in the idea that progress should not be hampered by traditional conservative values that seek to preserve the status quo, especially when it perpetuates systemic inequities. The movement often intersects with other ideologies such as environmentalism and feminism, emphasizing an inclusive approach to policy making that considers the diverse needs of different community segments. Progressive activists are usually at the forefront of advocacy for transformative policies, believing that change is essential for core. Capitalism. Capitalism is an economic system where private individuals, rather than the state, own and control property and businesses. The central pillars of capitalism include private property, capital accumulation, wage labor, voluntary exchange, a price system, and competitive markets. In a capitalist economy, the decision of what to produce, how to produce it, and for whom it is produced is determined by the market supply and demand dynamics, which in turn influence prices. The driving force behind capitalism is the pursuit of profit. Businesses operate to generate profits for their owners, and these profits can be reinvested into the business to foster growth or distributed among owners and shareholders. The role of the government in a capitalist system varies but generally includes protecting private property, enforcing contracts, and regulating certain economic activities to ensure fair competition and protect consumers. Proponents of capitalism argue that it drives innovation, economic growth, and consumer choice, making it the most efficient economic system for allocating resources and responding to consumer needs. Critics, however, point out that capitalism can lead to economic inequality, exploitation, and environmental degradation if not adequately regulated. They argue that the pursuit of profit might overshadow social welfare and lead to significant disparities in wealth and power. Democratic socialism. Democratic socialism is a political ideology that seeks to blend the democratic governance of a country with a socialist economic system. It supports political democracy alongside social ownership of significant sectors of the economy, with an emphasis on democratic management and control, unlike traditional socialism, which can involve centralized control over the economy. Democratic socialism advocates for this control to be democratic and grassroots in its approach. The core belief of democratic socialism is that both the economy and society should be run democratically, to meet public needs, not to make profits for a few. This involves managing industries and resources for the benefit of all, rather than allowing them to be owned and managed for private profit. Key sectors like healthcare, transportation, and energy might be nationalized or exist within cooperative frameworks where workers have a significant say in decision-making. Supporters of democratic socialism argue that this system reduces the economic inequalities that are often seen in capitalist systems. By prioritizing social welfare programs and the redistribution of wealth. Through progressive taxation, it aims to ensure a higher standard of living for the poorest members of society. Critics, however, argue that democratic socialism can be inefficient and can stifle economic incentives and innovation. They also worry about the potential for excessive government control and reduced individual freedoms. Monarchism. Monarchism is a political ideology that supports the rule by a single individual, such as a king, queen, or emperor, who typically holds the position for life and often passes it on to their offspring. This system can vary significantly, ranging from absolute monarchies, where the monarch has near total power, to constitutional monarchies, where the monarch's powers are limited by a constitution or a parliamentary system. Supporters of monarchism often believe in the legitimacy of hereditary rule, arguing that it provides continuity, stability, and a focal point for national unity. In some cases, monarchists also support the concept of the divine right of kings, which holds that the monarch's authority is granted by God, and that they are answerable only to the deity, not to earthly authorities or populations. In modern constitutional monarchies, the monarch often serves a ceremonial role, with real political power vested in elected bodies. However, they can still play significant parts in national identity and continuity. Advocates argue that monarchies can offer a nonpartisan figure above the political fray, providing a sense of continuity and tradition that strengthens the social fabric. Critics of monarchism often argue that it is inherently undemocratic, as it does not allow for equal participation in the political process and may concentrate too much power or influence in the hands of one individual or family. They also question the modern relevance of monarchies in an increasingly democratic and egalitarian world. Neoconservatism. Neoconservatism is a political ideology that originated in the United States during the 1960s and 1970s. Initially, it was championed by former liberals or leftists who had become disillusioned with the domestic social policies and foreign policy strategies of contemporary liberalism. They shifted their focus towards a form of conservatism that emphasizes the importance of maintaining moral standards and cultural norms, as they believed these were necessary for societal stability. At the heart of neoconservatism is a strong advocacy for an assertive foreign policy, characterized by the promotion of democracy and intervention to protect national interests abroad. Neoconservatives often support a strong military and believe that America should not shy away from using its power to influence global affairs, especially to combat totalitarian regimes and spread democratic values. Domestically, while they support a free market economy, they accept a more significant role for the government in certain areas than classical conservatives do, especially in enforcing moral values and maintaining public order. Neoconservatism has significantly shaped U.S. policies, particularly during the Reagan administration and the George W. Bush presidency, where it influenced major international events, including the Iraq War. Critics argue that neoconservative policies can lead to overreach in international affairs and excessive governmental control in personal matters. Theocracy. Theocracy is a form of government where the divine or religious leadership governs a state. In such systems, religious officials and institutions embody the state authority, typically with the belief that they are governed by divine guidance. Laws and governance policies are often derived from officially recognized religious texts or doctrines, making the theocracy deeply intertwined with the religion it supports. The key characteristic of a theocracy is that it does not separate religion from the state. Instead, it merges religious authority with political authority. This can lead to a government that promotes a uniformity of belief and practice, which, supporters argue, brings unity and moral clarity to governance. For instance, in modern Iran, the supreme leader, who is a senior cleric, holds significant influence over both the state and religious affairs, and the government's policies often reflect Shiite Islamic teachings. However, theocracies can also face significant criticism, particularly regarding human rights. Critics argue that theocracies can suppress religious freedom, as differing religious beliefs or dissenting interpretations of the state religion may not be tolerated. Additionally, because religious authority can be absolute and not subject to electoral review, theocratic governments can lack the accountability mechanisms typically found in more secular democratic systems. Radicalism. Radicalism encompasses a range of political ideologies that seek profound, fundamental changes to a society's structure. Radicals are characterized by their desire to address what they see as root causes of societal issues rather than merely treating symptoms. This can involve advocating for sweeping reforms or even revolutionary changes to overthrow existing social, economic, or political systems. Radicals can exist on both ends of the political spectrum. On the left, radicals may seek to completely dismantle capitalist systems in favor of socialist or communist structures, advocating for the redistribution of wealth and the elimination of class structures. On the right, radicals might push for extreme nationalism, strict immigration controls, and preservation of traditional values, sometimes at the expense of excluding or marginalizing groups considered outside the mainstream or traditionalist view. The appeal of radicalism often grows in times of perceived crisis or when significant portions of a population feel that existing systems are unjust, corrupt, or ineffective. Radical movements aim to mobilize these sentiments to bring about comprehensive change. While radicalism can drive progress and reform, it can also lead to polarization and conflict, as radical changes typically face significant opposition from those with vested interests in the status quo or differing ideological views. Radical ideologies have been behind many significant historical changes and revolutions, shaping nations and global politics profoundly. However, the disruptive nature of radical change also poses challenges in terms of stability and the potential for unintended consequences.